Hi everyone, how are you? I know it's 4:15, so I wanted to hop on and say hi and maybe give a minute or two just to see if what I'm going to do is do a PowerPoint with just a little bit of history about Plastic Free Delaware and kind of the current activities and legislation that we're working on, and then talk a little bit about how you can get involved. Um, so we'll have some Q&A at the end, and I'm happy to take any questions. I'll try to keep an eye on the comments, so in case you have any questions as we go along. I go ahead and see if I can share my screen here. Um, I can figure this out. Okay, sorry, hang in there. Unless Mrs. Hooper knows how to do it. Um, I know some speakers have had trouble with this. Your entire screen. It's probably because I have too many windows open. So hold on one second. Okay, let's try this again. Can you all see that? It's weird because I don't know if I'm seeing what you're seeing. So let me know if you can just see my PowerPoint. Yes? Okay. You can probably see everything right now, right? Not just the PowerPoint. So it seems I have to dim that or minimize that. So I won't be able to see the chat then. But we'll give it a whirl, and I'll come back in after I'm done the PowerPoint. Okay, um, so Plastic Free Delaware, we've been around now for about 10 years. We started in 2010, and let me see. We started when my kids were little, in elementary school actually, and we started out with the Jane Goodall Institute. Um, with a Roots and Shoots chapter, which is a global organization. It's sort of like scouting, but for the environment, for people that care about environmental issues. So we were looking for a project that would be quick and easy. And so I heard about a lot of other places all around the world that were banning plastic bags or putting fees on them. And I thought, well, that should be easy to do. We can get that done very quickly. But here we are 10 years later. Some of you may know that the law just went into effect. That's how long it took us to get the legislation passed. And my kids are no longer involved. It's just, I made a commitment to myself to see it through. But luckily, I have tons of other people helping me now besides my children. But we have lots of volunteers and including many youth. So that's actually what the inspiration was behind this Yes Summit, because many high school, even some middle school, even some elementary school kids came down to Dover with us and have written letters and that sort of thing, all to get the plastic bag ban passed. And they were so effective. That's when I was thinking we really need to do a summit to get kids in Delaware even more involved, educate them on the environmental issues, and teach them how to be great activists. So that's actually how the Yes Summit came about. So this screen just shows you one of the few data points that we have in terms of documenting that plastic pollution is really a problem. And you can see here that even though the plastic bag recycling cleanup day, so if you kind of forget 2020 and look at all the other years, there's still kind of a lot of plastic bags being found on the beaches every year. This is just a 3-hour period on one day every year. So it doesn't seem like the recycling law is doing enough, right? This is another cleanup that's up here in northern Wilmington every year. And this was just the data from 1 year of the stuff that they found during their cleanup. So, and this is another data point we have, which I'm actually not a data-driven person. It's not the data that makes me want to care about this issue and do something about this issue. But there are people out there that are data-driven, and especially some legislators, want to know the numbers. So this was actually a study done in Delaware a couple years ago that looked at the trash on our highways. They did a sampling of trash, and the top part is, the trash that is greater than 4 inches inside. The bottom graph is, or pie chart, whatever, is trash that was less than 4 inches in size. And you might imagine, that includes larger plastic things or boxes and whatnot that get chewed up in mowers. But you can see in both graphs that plastic is a huge part of the problem. And because it doesn't biodegrade, it's really a problem. So you can see by these numbers, it's just a horrendous issue, just bags alone in terms of the number of bags that are used every year. And where does plastic come from? How is it made? A lot of people don't realize that it's made from natural gas or oil. So that involves extraction industries, and all that oil has to be refined and then transported, turned into plastic, that are used, like say for your computer, which is made out of plastic, or hospital equipment that uses plastic. Certainly we're not trying to get rid of that sort of thing, but we are trying to minimize the single-use plastic, that very little of it actually gets reused or recycled. Some of you may have heard about the gyres in the ocean, which is where a lot of the plastics that get washed out to sea end up in the middle of the oceans and, just circulate there or end up staying there because there really isn't a lot of circulation, and they sit there and they don't biodegrade. They do eventually break down due to the sun, but that's just making smaller, little bits of plastic, which are ending up actually in fish that we eat, and shellfish and fish. It's being studied more that we actually are eating fish every time, or eating plastic when we eat animals and in our food chain, and the health effects of that plastic is also being documented. I'm sure you're all aware of the potential plastic can cause to wild animals, and a cow here, shows that it can also affect domestic animals. It ends up, in pastures and being eaten by animals, which can kill them or cause major problems, and it can get into their feed as well. Not to mention, of course, the wild animals that don't have the ability to deal with these sorts of situations. I already touched on the fact that these little bits of plastic that break down get into our food chain. So again, less than 10%, for instance, of plastic bags, but also like plastic water bottles and whatnot, get recycled or reused. So that means that more than 90% of them are either ending up out in the environment or in the landfill. And so that's really what we want to address. And the way we go about it is really two prongs. One is it's the carrot and the stick. We try to do educational programs just like this all over the state, and we talk to groups, school classrooms, at festivals. We do tabling, that sort of thing, and that's something that volunteers can help with. We do bag giveaways at grocery stores sometimes. And then the advocacy piece is trying to actually change regulations that deal with these issues. So, for instance, the plastic bag legislation. So that's the stick side of the carrot and the stick. So House Bill 130 was 2 years ago, and it's the bill that banned plastic bags of a certain thinness as of January, just this past January, and only at larger stores. So I actually literally just got off the phone with a strategy meeting. A lot of people are complaining that the law, that a lot of the stores are still giving away plastic bags, and the thing is they are following the letter of the law. The bags they're giving away are more than 2.25 mils thick. So they're not against the law, but we're upset because they are really against the spirit of the law and the purpose behind the law, which was to get rid of these single-use plastics. So we actually are working hard to have another piece of legislation this spring that will tighten that up and not allow that to, for retailers to give away, a 3 mil plastic bag, and also to expand it to smaller retailers and restaurants. Another piece of legislation we have going on right now, which we could definitely use advocates to help, are balloon releases. A lot of people just don't realize, and I have to admit, until a few years ago, I didn't really think about it, that balloon releases, it's trash. And just because it goes up before it comes back down and litters the earth, it's still a form of littering. Not to mention the fact that they kill animals. The animals get tied up in the strings, or they actually eat the balloons and can't digest them, and it clogs up their innards, and they can die. A lot of the whales and porpoises and dolphins and birds and turtles that they find dead on the beaches, when they open them up, they often find their stomachs full of plastics. So that's one reason why, we just really need to stop doing this. Oddly enough, balloons also, can cause power outages when they get wrapped around power wires. And helium is in short supply, and helium is also a byproduct of extraction for oil and natural gas. So by decreasing the need for helium, we're also decreasing the need for those extractive industries. So there's a whole bunch of reasons why balloons filled with helium are not a great idea. You can still fill them with air and not let them go. That should be fine. And there's other alternatives for memorial services and that sort of thing. Anyway, we have, I don't know if I have it here. Yeah, this year we have Senate Bill 24. It was actually introduced last year, and it was last year, I think it was Senate Bill 22, but COVID basically shut the legislation down last year. And so this year it was reintroduced as Senate Bill 24. And if you're so inclined, you can write to your state legislators and encourage them to support passage of this bill. And if you're interested, we're happy to, help you figure out who your legislator is and give you some ideas for a letter. There's more information about all these issues on our website, which is plasticfreedelaware.org. So a large part of now that we've got one piece of legislation, our mainstay, the plastic bag legislation, underway, we have been looking more towards expanding our mission to cultivating a future of what we call zero waste, which will never, ever probably get to a zero waste future. But the idea is, we have to start down the path to aim for that, and in the reverse pyramid, you see recycling is way down at the bottom and trash is below that. But trash is the smallest part of the pyramid and should be the last resort. So everything else at the top of the pyramid, comes first in terms of reducing and reusing, refill, repairing what you already have, replacing, and also just another word that's not on here that I've heard is refuse. So, if you don't really need something, don't buy it. Like is it something you really don't need? If, you can live without it, just don't get it. So, as part of reducing plastics that end up in the landfill, and also, just a zero waste repair mentality, we are endorsing another bill that came up this year in Delaware, which is House Bill 22, the right to repair legislation. And right to repair is just it's mostly concerning electronics, but all equipment and machinery that can be repaired. In recent years, a lot of companies, computer manufacturers, and even like farm equipment, cell phone manufacturers, that sort of thing, make it very difficult to repair. Like some brands, you can't even open them up. Others, they won't release their manuals. So when I was younger, there used to be repair shops all over town that would repair your TV or your vacuum cleaner or whatever. And that type of repair shop has sort of gone by the wayside as large corporations have tightened up their ability to repair things. And it may seem like a weird thing, but it's a huge part of what goes into the landfills. A lot of our electronics just don't get recycled. And so this legislation, we're actually trying to get national legislation, but there's over, I think, 22 states this year that have similar legislation at the state level, and we're trying to build support for that so that eventually a national law will be put into effect. Another bill we're working on is styrofoam or polystyrene, but most people know it as styrofoam, and plastic cutlery that, if you get takeout, often you get single-use plastic cutlery and plastic straws. We've been working on straws for a few years now to have restaurants volunteer. Just move here. So I just wanted to give a shout out to all of the sponsors that have supported the summit, because this is one of our largest educational programs that we do every year now. It's the second year, but we're already looking at next year, planning next year. That's another way you can get involved. And we're just so excited to have youth of all ages be involved in our advocacy efforts. Out, that sort of thing, or not take a plastic bag for produce if you don't need it. So, pick one thing and build a habit, and then pick another thing and just keep adding to it until you slowly or quickly change your habits in terms of single-use plastic and stuff that goes to the landfill. So here's our website, and I'm going to try to come back on here. If I can join you, because I can't see you right now. Okay. All right, good. So, are there any questions? I wish we could just have a conversation, but I don't know that there's a way I can just make you all live. If you want to ask a question live, you can grab the mic button down in, I think it's in the lower left, and I can bring you over live, or you can put any questions you might have in the chat. So we have a working group of volunteers. We're all volunteers, and we meet monthly to work on our advocacy agenda and on our educational activities. And we're always welcoming people of all ages to participate in that. I know it might be kind of hard because it's during the school day, but we are happy to find ways to get students involved if they're interested. So are there any questions about getting more involved, or maybe you can get your class to adopt one of these pieces of legislation and write letters. We can supply the list of emails for state legislators, that kind of thing, if there's interest. I just spoke to a group at Odyssey Charter a couple weeks ago, Mrs. Gates' class. I think they were 5th and 6th graders. They were the green team, and so we talked about the balloon legislation. I think they're going to write letters on that. All right, you guys, you're being awfully quiet. There we go. We got a question. Yeah, I mean, that's part of the problem. It was sort of an unforeseen consequence with House Bill 130. But the idea behind House Bill 130 was that people would switch from plastic bags to reusable bags. And certainly that has happened to some extent, but we've been disappointed in the number of stores that have just been, as I said, been giving away just thicker plastic bags. So we are trying to, again, we probably will have legislation later this spring that will tighten up that loophole and maybe just outlaw plastic bags completely in Delaware in retailers. So we'll see what happens there. But definitely, I think the thinking was to get this bill started, and then actually we're not really getting any complaints about the current law. And the complaints we're mostly seeing are people that are annoyed that some stores are still giving out plastic. So that's why I literally just got off the phone call with some legislators state legislators, and they're interested in doing a bill this spring. So stay tuned for that. I'm sure you'll hear more about it. And if you go to our website, which I'll put in here, you can sign up for our email list, and we send out notices of legislation that's coming up, talking points, who you can write to, that sort of thing, if you're interested. And I'll put my email address in here too, in case you want to get in touch with me. We can talk to classes or clubs, organizations of all types. I think I assume you can all see the question about the cost and how these retailers make a decision. I don't know the exact cost of, for instance, paper bags versus the thicker plastic bags, but I've heard that they're quite expensive, obviously, compared to the cheap, thin plastic bags. I've heard that the paper what some of these retailers are deciding to do. And some of them have actually decided to charge for bags, which that is one way that a lot of cities and countries all around the globe have decided to address the problem. We in Delaware did a ban, but a lot of places around the world, including some places in the US, including Washington, D.C., did a fee-based bill. So every time you go to the grocery, they're allowed to use whatever type of bag they want to, but they have to buy is enough to make you think twice about taking that bag if you don't really want it. And it has reduced their bag usage by a lot. And it has reduced their litter problem in the DC area by a lot. And it's also raised quite a bit of money for them to help with related costs like cleaning up the Anacostia River and doing educational programs and stuff. So a fee-based bill is actually sort of a win-win in that regard. But our legislature here did not want to do a fee-based bill. So anyway, yeah, I do think that cost is a factor in, but obviously some stores are deciding to give away fairly expensive bags, and at least for the time being. So I think there's still some flux out there in kind of what you're going to see in Delaware, until maybe we get this next law passed and it's a little more clear what they can and can't do. I think there'll be a little bit of flux around the state in terms of who uses what and what they decide. It also depends too if they're a national chain, because then national chains, are buying bulk for the whole country, and they probably have a different thought process about trying to keep up with all the different regulations. So let's see. Mrs. Hooper says, "Yeah, in China." Yeah, exactly. China was one that that's so cool. They used to live there. I think when my understanding is that several years before the Olympics were held there, they realized how bad the plastic pollution problem was, and they didn't want people coming to visit the country for the Olympics and see that, see all the litter. So they instituted their fee-based bill, and I'm assuming it made a big difference in terms of the litter problem there. But yeah, all through Europe too is fee-based, I think. And it does make a difference. So it's just another way of approaching the problem. So any other questions out there? So was it clean? The roadsides? That's great. So what else? We also nice. It's interesting because when I go to out west, it seems like the roadsides are much cleaner too, and I just don't know if it's because out there's much more of an outdoors mentality. I don't know. It's interesting. I just don't understand why we have so much litter here. It's not just Delaware, but there's also a bill that was introduced in Congress a couple years ago, but it sunsetted, or whatever they call it, with this is a new Congress now this year for 2 years. It has to be reintroduced, and it's called the Break Free from Plastic Act, I guess, Break Free from Plastic Act, and it goes way beyond all of this and would be a national bill. So we will be sending out information. They're going to introduce it in a week or so. And so we'll be trying to encourage Delaware's congressional delegation to sign on. I know that Representative Lisa Blunt Rochester was a co-signer last time, so hoping she will sign on again this time. But neither of our senators were signers last time, so we need all of you guys to help us convince them to sign on. So if you sign up for our e-newsletter, we'll be getting information out about that, and you can write letters to the editor. We can help you with that sort of thing. and you can write letters to the senators as well, and to our representative Blunt Rochester, and just thank her or encourage her to sign on again. So there's definitely, we are part of a few groups, global coalitions that, of people working all around the world, everywhere around the world, on these issues. And so that's exciting to see how much the movement has grown in the last 10 years. And, but we still have so far to go because the companies that use these single-use plastics, like for instance, Coca-Cola, and other companies, they have a much greater head start than we do, and a lot of power, and it's all about cost again. So, they don't really want to change their ways, but I'm glad to see that the global movement and pressure on them is really growing. Okay, you guys, let's see what it's quarter of. What the next session starts at 5, is that right? I think so. We still have a few minutes. If you have any more questions, or if not, we can close down and send you off to the next session. Awesome. That sounds great. Have you attended any of the climate change sessions here at the Yes Summit, Dora? All right. Well, if there aren't any more questions, hopefully you know how to get a hold of me. And yeah, I think there is one today, if I'm not mistaken. I forget exactly what's on the schedule today. I'm pretty sure there's one on renewable energy, and I forget what the other ones are. So you'll just have to check them out. But there's definitely quite a few groups involved in putting on Yes. For instance, the Citizens Climate Lobby, you can check them out in our sponsor list. Their link is there, and you could get involved with them. And there's quite a few groups that are kind of approaching climate change on in a variety of ways, and it's not something I'm focused on per se. So I'm not the best one to tell you what the different groups are and how they're approaching it differently, but definitely check out our sponsor links for our nonprofit partners and just check out their websites, and maybe I know like Beth Chagis from Citizens Climate Lobby would be happy to talk with you. So I know, lost in the technology of this summit. We love the Run the World platform, but it has also been tricky at times. So thank you everyone for bearing with it. All right, well, I'm going to sign off then and let you all head off to the next session. You're welcome. Contact me if you want, sign up for our e-newsletter, and wish you all a great afternoon. Enjoy the rest of the conference.